Greetings, fellow mortals. Just a reminder, saying it's just my opinion is for cowards. With Netflix Avatar being out, I wanted to talk about one of my favorite scenes in the first season. There are a lot of episodes and scenes throughout the entire series that could be classified as close to perfect, but there is definitely a first one in the Southern Air Temple. Not that the introduction to everyone in Boy in the Iceberg isn't fantastic, but I think the strength in that scene can only be completely appreciated in retrospect after seeing most, if not all, of the series. The scene where Aang finds his father figure's corpse doesn't need a whole lot of context at all to understand the scope of what is happening. To set this all up, the episode starts with the group traveling to the Southern Air Temple, Aang's home. They just escaped Zuko and left the South Pole behind them. Aang is very excited to show his new friends all the people and things that he loves. It's obvious that Aang really hasn't internalized that 100 years have passed, or that a war is raging across the planet. He also doesn't think about the fact that everyone he ever knew would have already perished at this point, because, he's a child. Who would expect a 12-year-old boy to understand the scope of a 100-year-old war or a genocide?
I don't understand. I don't understand, bitch. I don't understand.
Despite the temple being abandoned, Aang still doesn't believe what's happening. It doesn't help that Sokka and Katara are trying to help him feel better by exploring the temple, playing games, and, most importantly, hiding signs of battle from him. They eventually enter a sacred area that has statues of Aang's previous lives as the Avatar. That's when they're found by a lemur eventually named Momo. Yay for Momo! Aang and Sokka chase after the animal, and that leads to this scene. Aang follows after Momo only to discover a room filled with death and despair. Aang is shocked to see a small army of dead firebenders leading up to a single monk skeleton. This shocks Aang for a wide range of reasons. One, because Sokka and Katara have been hiding the signs of battle from Aang this whole time. Two, because it's probably unthinkable that an air nomad would kill so many different people. And three, because of the dead body itself, which he immediately identifies as Monk Gyatso.
Hey, who left this bowl of onions here?
I know that I just said that The Boy in the Iceberg is better in retrospect, but so is this scene, because we later learn how hard it is for air nomads to kill anyone, and because we know just how powerful the firebenders are during Sozin's comet, meaning that the strongest airbender in the world went full scorched earth, slaughtering waves of firebenders whose power have basically been multiplied by 10. This leaves the impression of just how powerful Aang's teacher actually is. Imagine what he did to these people. Did he create a whirlwind, crushing their bones? Did he send out arcs of air, cutting them to pieces? Did he literally pull the oxygen from their lungs and suffocate them? And what atrocities did he see to push him to this point? Was he still defending anyone? Was he the last airbender fighting? How many of his fellow monks did he see fall? How many apprentices? Was he thankful that Aang wasn't there when this happened? Was he wishing that he knew where Aang was so that he knew that his adopted son was safe? Was he crying, angry, alone? So many questions, no definitive answers. All we have is a sickening scar of what war and evil can do to someone who has only ever been kind to those around him.
Would you get out of here?
This is the key to show, not tell. A picture is worth 1,000 words. In a few short seconds, we are flooded with absolutely no concrete information, but all of the implied information that we could ever need to know about what happened. It is literally perfection, and we're filled with just as much sadness as the main character. We watch as the ever-cheerful and optimistic Aang drops to his knees in despair, and that is how Sokka finds him. Aang is getting his first real look on the consequences of war. in comparison to the small hints that he's witnessed since the beginning of the series. Sokka is immediately compassionate. For once, he drops all of the jokes and all of the desire for food. He recognizes the pain of seeing someone you love cut down by firebenders. Sokka tries to comfort Aang, but is shocked when the boy's arrow tattoos start to glow. But that's not the only thing which lights up. Katara is still in the sacred chamber with the statues. She is stunned when all of their eyes start to glow with the same light as Aang's tattoos. Not that she knows that fact, but she's smart enough to realize that this has something to do with Aang, and he may very well not be reacting well to something within the temple. Whether it be foes, dead, or living doesn't matter. She rushes to go help him. Katara isn't the only one to see the glow, however. While the Southern Air Temple is abandoned, there are other temples across the world with the other elements that are lighting up as well, including in the Fire Nation, meaning that a large chunk of the world is now aware of the Avatar's return. And, more importantly, the entire enemy army is aware of the Avatar's return, meaning that the side story of Zuko and Zhao gets more complicated as they are no longer the only ones who know of Aang's existence. Meanwhile, Aang is having a complete mental breakdown. He is in deep grief after realizing that everyone he knew and loved was slaughtered by the Fire Nation. This is one of our first real glimpses of the Avatar state and just how powerful and angry it can actually be. Aang's airbending grows so strong that he creates a vortex around himself. Sokka and Katara are powerless against him, looking up at him in awe and fear, but also an understanding of just how much pain he's experiencing right now.
Hey!
Katara calls out to him, telling him that he isn't alone. His old family might be gone, but Katara and Sokka are his new family. This manages to pull Aang out of his suffering and rage. He descends to the ground, exhausted and filled with grief. Katara embraces him. Aang finally realizes that everything they've been telling him is true. The firebenders slaughtered his entire people. All of the airbenders are gone. He is the only one left, and the reality of the 100-year war finally settles into his mind. Aang now realizes how much rests upon his shoulders as the Avatar. The scene also reinforces Aang's connection to Katara and Sokka, making them the only human connections that he seemingly has left in the world. Yes, we later learn that Bumi is still alive, but Aang doesn't know that at this point. This feeling of loneliness will lead to a reliance on Katara and Sokka throughout this season, both in a negative and positive way. This one scene from this one episode sets up the entire emotional journey of the first season and perhaps the series as a whole, from introducing the previous lives to revealing the full power of the Avatar state, and even to ingraining the despair of the war into the minds of both Aang and the audience. It was everything it needed to be and more. A truly perfect scene, the first of many that would happen throughout Avatar: The Last Airbender. You're welcome to disagree with all this, that's fine. After all, everyone is entitled to their objectively wrong opinion.
First, let's get one thing straight. I'm not crying. I'm just sweating through my eyes.
Hey, do you like stories about an interconnected world? Then consider giving my LPCO books a try. They are all connected in some way, but you can jump in at any point, unless it's a series. Then you have to start at the beginning. But I got 3 books out right now and 3 coming next year. You will not have to wait long for content. Either way, thank you. I appreciate you. Do not despair.